こんなもんか。
Hello again. Zoe here to tell another story. This one's... Uh... Hmm. It's a story, alright. Okay, so a few years ago when I was in my early 20s, I had gotten a job at a fast food restaurant, whose name I will not disclose. And when I started working, there was a girl who was training me. Let's call her, Michelle. No, Michelle's not good. Jade. Yeah, Jade's fine. Sorry, I'm also concealing her real name. Well, during my training, Jade and I got along really well. Like, really well. Hang on, I don't think you understand. Let me just get a little closer. Like, really well. We weren't dating by any means, but I mean, we did kind of like fool around a lot. So we started to really like to get to know each other a lot, and we just started hanging out more, like outside of work. So during that time, her birthday had come around, and I thought it would have been nice to take her out to the movies. Like we had like a great time, and since this was New York City, the movie theater I had gone to was only a few blocks away from my old high school. I had mentioned to her that my school was nearby, and she wanted to go see it. But in order to get there, we had to go up this really steep hill. Imagine that. A creepy, dark school at the top of a hill. So once we were done, we kept walking past the school because about 2 blocks further there was a small little park called Goose Pond. So we made our way to the park, and we were able to find a bench right there near the entrance, and the second we sat down it started to rain. Like we were sitting down under like this big tree. And because of this big tree we didn't get rained on. Like the rain only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes, and then it was over. After the rain had stopped, like it was really weird because it caused some kind of like form of mist to sort of coat the surface of the pond. Like it was really pretty and romantic even. Alright, so let me just say that at this point, we should have just gotten up and clasped our hands and said, well, this was a good night. Let's call it a day. But that's not what happened. In almost vulgar fashion and due to overwhelming arousal, we proceeded to, well, you know. She had taken my hand, and we walked behind some bushes that was on the other side of the main path of the pond. Hang on, let me draw you a small layout of the area so you can have an idea of where we went. So we had went past the main path behind those tall wedges. Just go with me for a second, I'm getting somewhere with this. So back there was just trees, grass, and just absolute darkness. So we quickly walk back there, and we go between 2 trees, and stuff happens. Don't ask me for details, I'm not gonna say anything. So once we were done, on the way out, it's like relatively dark, and Jay just straight up trips. Kind of like you're just like hiking in the woods, and like you tripped over like a big log and stuff. So she trips and she just falls like flat on the ground. So like I immediately scramble and I help her out, and so we turn around to see what it was that she had tripped over. And you know what? Despite the fact that it was incredibly dark, it was still like it was obvious that it was like this, like the dark silhouette of a man. It was a silhouette of a man that was not moving. And for what felt like an abnormally large uncomfortable moment. It was just, there was no sound. There was like no wind, there were no insects chirping. It was just dark and creepy and quiet. And then literally after that, almost like someone had just flipped the light switch. I think like her fight or flight like triggers in her head, because at that point she just grabs my arm and she just books it out of the darkness with me dragging behind. We ran out of the park, past my school, to the bottom of the hill, where at that point she stops to like finally catch her breath. So I can like, at that point she like vocally like takes in a very deep breath. Like I can hear her taking a deep breath. And she turns to me and she screams, "He's dead. That dude was dead." So like at that point my reasoning and my logic had, like, I had calmed myself down enough for my reason and logic to take over me. So at that point I'm trying to calm her down, telling her that I wasn't just some dead dude. That if anything, like, we would have seen him as we were hiking on our way in. But she was still too convinced that it was just some dead guy. So as a reassurance, I told her that I would call the police so that they can come pick up this obviously passed out drunk dude who wandered in and just plopped down, passed out after a night of drinking. I mean, it was a Friday night after all. So I go on a payphone when payphones were still like working, and I call 911, and we go wait outside of the park. So not a few minutes later, a police officer had shown up in a squad car and asked if we were the ones to make the call. Jade, without wasting time, points to where the guy was. And the police officer, choosing not to question us on what we were doing back there, immediately gets in his car and drives into the park behind the hedges and just stays there. And for a few minutes, all we're watching is just the red and blue lights flash. And at this point, I'm reassuring Jade that the cop is probably trying to get the guy up so that he can go home. But then another cop car shows up, and then another, and then an ambulance. Once the ambulance had settled in outside of the hedges, we see them pull out a stretcher. Once I saw that, I was just like, oh, yeah, I mean, they're probably here to just like, you know, check his vital stuff and make sure that he's okay before they send him off. So then, like, another 7 to 8 minutes just pass of everyone just being back there, and the paramedics kind of come back with a stretcher, and they're putting the stretcher back into the ambulance. But there is just like this ominous black bag just strapped to the stretcher. We kind of just stood there, just watching in horror. I kind of just gave up trying to reason, and I just turned to her and I said, like, yeah, maybe that was some dead dude. And after that, we immediately left before we got in trouble, and like on our way home, we kind of just didn't speak about it ever again. Well, I do hope you guys enjoyed that story. I mean, it's been a long time since I've actually told anyone that story, or even decided to consider to draw it. Well, I mean, it's probably gonna be a while before I tell another story. This took me weeks to arrange because of work and a bunch of stuff. Alright, well, see you guys later.